Well, we are a couple days away from Christmas. Anybody ready for Christmas? Any of our locations? Yeah, a few of you are. A few hands, a few nods, a few, we'll see. We're going to find out, right? Some of you even came today dressed in a Christmas sweater at all of our locations. I want to apologize to Shadow Lake real fast. Your campus pastor is wearing something that is awful, and I apologize to you specifically. This is a full suit. It is gross, and so I apologize to Shadow Lake today for that. He will never get to wear that again. We'll post a picture later. Somebody just asked for a picture, so Drew, you're gonna need to post that somewhere. It's gross. Anyway, others of you have worn a sweater. My family came in today. They're like, how come you didn't wear your sweater? I didn't because I didn't want to distract you today. But I do have Clark W. Griswold socks on right now, okay? I can show you later if you want to see those later, but I do have those. I figured I didn't want to distract you today. But here's what I'd like to do to kind of get things started this morning. I would love to know just how ready you are for Christmas. And so here's what I want to have everybody do. Everybody, no matter what location you're at, if you're in the venue, Heritage Ridge, online, Shadow Lake, right here, it doesn't matter. Everybody raise your hand. It doesn't matter which hand, just raise your hand. Okay, if you raise your hand, you can participate, all right? You can participate in this survey. I just want to know where everybody's at. You can put your hands down. Some of you are like, do I put it down? Simon didn't say. All right, so here we go. Raise your hand if you have decorated your house inside or outside. Raise your hand. All right, okay, you can put those down. Here's what I've never fully understood. I've never fully understood why we bring the outside in. You bring the tree in and you take the electricity out. I've never got it. Nobody's questioned it. We just do it, right? Let's bring a tree in the house. Why? Because we're supposed to. All right, raise your hand if your family has some sort of Christmas tradition that you do. Raise your hand. All right, okay. I'd love to know some of the traditions, they're kind of funny sometimes. How many of you, your tradition is that you open all of your presents on Christmas Eve? Raise your hands. Okay. Sinners. How about the other of you that do it on Christmas morning like the rest of us, like real people? Yes. All right. Raise your hand if you are done shopping. You're done shopping? Overachievers. They're probably wrapped and under the tree too, aren't they? Sheesh. All right. How about this one? Groan loudly if you haven't started. Not much groaning, but I did see some hands go up, and I'm not gonna lie, they were all dudes. Okay, see you at Target. Raise your hand if you are hosting Christmas this year. You're hosting? All right, so you got the vacuum out, you're cleaning, you're going nuts, you're doing all the things. How many of you are traveling this Christmas? All right, the air mattress gang, we love you, right? Now let's get a little bit more personal. How many of you, maybe it's you or somebody you know, could use a little bit more peace and hope this Christmas? It's true, isn't it? I mean, Christmas isn't always what it's made out to be in a Hallmark movie. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably not a lot of us that are going back to our small town to shut down a local bakery, to find out that the local bakery is ran by our high school sweetheart who's gonna teach us the true meaning of Christmas. Don't give me, that's all of them, right? If it's not the bakery, it's the bank, it's the this, it's all of them. But that's not Christmas. It's not real. They're enjoyable. They're fun to watch, but it's not really Christmas. In fact, I would guess, and maybe you're like me, Christmas has this way of kind of magnifying both the good, the beautiful, and the bad and the ugly all in one, right? It has this opportunity to be the greatest season of the year and also magnify all of the heartache and hurt that we have. It's this tension that we get into every single time we come around Christmas, where it reminds us of the things that we can't fix, the things we can't control, the expectations that maybe we'll never meet. And I know that all of us, we want peace at Christmas. But perhaps at Christmas, peace is the one thing we realize that we'll never fully have until we understand the true Christmas story. Maybe it's the empty chair at the dinner table where someone used to sit. Maybe it's the broken relationship where every time you watch that Christmas movie or listen to that Christmas song, you're reminded of the relationship that's broken. Maybe it's the overwhelming financial stress and pressure of meeting everybody's expectations. See, Christmas is fun and it's joyful, but at the same time, it can magnify all of this hurt and pain and unmet expectations that we have. And that, I believe, is why Christmas is so powerful. So we've been in a series called For Unto Us. And in this series, we've been talking about this passage of scripture from Isaiah chapter 9. When Isaiah says this, in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, it says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And in this series, we've been looking at these truths about Jesus, we've been uncovering these truths about Jesus, that he came to be with us, and he died for us. And the thought we're gonna look at today is so that he can shine through us. See, these words from Isaiah chapter 9, "For unto us a child is born, and for unto us a son has been given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he'll be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." These words are perhaps the most quoted words in this season. But when you understand the depth of what it says here, when Isaiah said these words, it was a very bleak time for the people of Israel. They were facing war. They were facing opposition. They were facing spiritual decline. And they're looking for hope in a very, very, very dark world. And right in the middle of this darkness, Isaiah gives this promise. And he says, a child is going to be born, a son is going to be given, and it's going to change everything. So when you understand the context of what Isaiah says in Isaiah chapter 9, the words hit that much harder. So the northern kingdom of Israel had been taken captive by the Assyrians. And the southern kingdom, Judah, was on the verge of being taken captive as well. And the people are struggling, and they're facing all sorts of uncertainty, and they're turning away from God, and they're facing the consequences of those actions. But Isaiah's words are radically different from any other words up to this point. See, in the midst of their struggles, in the midst of their fear, in the midst of their opposition and their oppression, God wasn't just gonna send a message. God wasn't just gonna send a sign. No, God was gonna send a son. His own son to live among them. This is the heart of Christmas. God is with us right in the middle of our mess, right in the middle of our chaos, right in the middle of our uncertainty. God is in the middle of it. See, just as the people of Israel were looking for a hope in the time of darkness, maybe you're here today at any of our locations and you're feeling the same way. You're in similar situations today. You're facing personal decisions, uncertainties, challenges. You're feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, and it's so overwhelming. And Isaiah's words in Isaiah chapter 9 are true to us today. For unto us a son is given to bring light and life into ours. And so as we kick off today, no matter what you're facing, no matter how dark things may seem, the message of Christmas is simple. Jesus Christ came for you. It doesn't matter if you feel disqualified. Doesn't matter if you feel like you're unworthy. The message of Christmas is simple. Jesus came for you to offer us hope. Unto us a child is born. We could say this, we could sum up the series this way. If you hear nothing else, sum up the series this way. Jesus was born to be with us and to die for us so his light could shine through us. I want to say that today. So on the count of three, we're all going to say that together, okay? You've already participated in a survey. I know you're capable of doing this, all right? So here we go. On the count of three, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Jesus was born with us to die for us so that his light could shine through us. Let's do it one more time. Jesus was born to be with us and to die for us so that his light could shine through us. If you have your Bible, go ahead and open it up to John chapter 1. John chapter 1 is where we're going to be for the remainder of our day today. And I don't know if you know this or not, but in the Bible, in the New Testament, there are 4 books called the Gospels. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what the Gospels do, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what they do is they actually tell the story of Jesus, the stories of Jesus. They give the life and the account of his time on this earth. Jesus was here for 33 years on this earth. And so in those 4 books, it walks through and tells us the stories of Jesus. Now, if you kind of flip through them all and you kind of go through each of them, you're going to find there's similarities in there, but there's also major differences. The birth narrative is very different from all four perspectives. And the one we're going to look at today is from John. And I love the way John does this because it's fascinating. When John writes the book of John, he's very old in age. Chances are he's probably told stories over and over and over again. And as he gets up there in age, he's going, you know what? I need to write these down because at some point I'm going to pass away and my stories, I can tell them, but now I need to put them in paper. And so John begins writing these out, and he's very old in age. By this time, most likely he's the last apostle still alive as he writes this. And he doesn't start with the birth narrative. He doesn't start with the story of Mary and Joseph. He doesn't go there at all, which is really kind of awkward. Here's why. Because when Jesus is on the cross later on, when Jesus is on the cross, he looks out at John, he looks out at Mary. And he says to John, hey, John, I want you to take Mary as your mom. And he says to Mary, I want you to take John as your son. And so ultimately, you would have known that they would have spent a lot of time together. Mary, the mother of Jesus, and John would have spent a lot of time together. And if there was ever somebody that could ask Mary all these questions, hey, Mary, what was it like when the angel appeared to you? Hey, Mary, what was it like to give birth to the Son of God? Mary, what was it like to go to the stable? What was it like? He could have asked all of those questions. And chances are he did. And chances are he heard those stories over and over and over again. And yet, John doesn't start there. John doesn't say, once upon a time, Mary. John doesn't start with Joseph. John doesn't start with Herod. John doesn't start with any of that. Instead, John starts with the significance of Jesus. Check it out. John chapter 1, verse 4. Here's what John says. In him, he's talking about Jesus. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. John starts off and he says, hey, listen, Jesus was life, and he was light for all mankind. Now, when you read this, we go, okay, that's great. When he says this, you have to understand the complexity of what he's saying, because the people of Israel thought that Jesus came for the people of Israel. And John's going, no. He came for all mankind. He came for you. He came for me. He came for the outcasts. He came for the oppressed. He came for everybody, for all mankind. And then he goes on in verse 5. It says the light, he's talking about Jesus, the light shines in the darkness. Now he may have paused here. He may have reflected about all the darkness that he's experienced in his lifetime. I mean, John has gone through it. He's gone through a lot of stuff. Everybody around him has died, probably pretty gruesome deaths because they were followers of Jesus. John has gone through all sorts of the Jewish nation going in chaos. He's gone through all of this stuff. Everything he's ever known has been taken away from him. And he writes, the light shines in the darkness. But then he goes on. And the darkness has not overcome it. This is a man who's got the news that his friend Peter has been executed, that his friend Paul has been executed, that perhaps he's the last apostle still on the face of the earth as he writes these words. And despite all of that, check out what he says. The darkness has not overcome it. The darkness of Herod couldn't overcome it. The darkness of Caesar couldn't overcome it. The darkness of Tiberius couldn't overcome it. The darkness of Nero couldn't overcome it. This was John, who was absolutely convinced that no matter how complicated life got, no matter how much we face, how much adversity we face in this life, no matter how deep the heartache or the headache or the extreme fear, none of that mattered because he knew the truth. He says there's a light that darkness cannot extinguish. See, John's experience with Jesus gave him a perspective that a lot of people didn't have. You have to understand, John was a follower of Jesus. He had seen Jesus perform miracles. He watched Jesus heal the sick. He watched Jesus raise a dead girl. He watched Jesus raise Lazarus. He witnessed Jesus go to the cross. And then he saw Jesus alive again. And so when he writes these words, this is a declaration of hope. He writes these words and he talks about how he's the light. And it's not just some symbol. It's not some symbol, he's the light. No, this is a real living presence saying Jesus brings hope and he brings life and he brings light in the darkest of times. And that same light is available to us today. See, if you go back to the very beginning of the Bible, when God created the world, what does he say? He says, let there be what? Light. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. And the light wasn't just for visibility. It was a symbol of his presence, of his goodness, of his ability to bring order into chaos. And so in Genesis chapter 1, he says, let there be light. In John chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus is talking. Check out what Jesus says. He says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. No matter how dark life may get, no matter how much you may go through, I am the light of the world. Always look to me to bring light into your life. I don't know about you, but when I walk into a dark room, I usually do one thing. What do we do? We turn the light on, right? That's what we do. We walk into a dark room, it changes everything. My kids collect Legos, and so because of that, I don't want to walk into a dark room and step on a Lego. That's the worst punishment ever, right? So when you walk into a room, you turn a light on, it changes everything. It changes the visibility of the space that you're in. What was hidden is now seen. Jesus does that in our life. He doesn't just offer us light on the outside. He wants to transform us with his light from the inside. And when John pens these words, you have to understand how vital light was in Scripture. It was an indicator of God's presence. It was an indicator of the direction that God was leading people towards. In Genesis 1:3, it says, let there be light. In Exodus chapter 13, the people are headed into the desert, into the promised land, and God leads them by a light at night. We see it in the Christmas story. There's a light that the wise men follow. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 10, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. See, at Christmas, we're confronted with the fact that there are problems that we can't solve, people we can't control, expectations we'll never be able to meet. But in the midst of all of this, we're reminded there's a light that shines in a darkness, and no amount of darkness can put it out. And so let me talk to a few of you right now that just feel like you're walking and stumbling in the darkness. And maybe you're here today and just the idea of Christmas makes you feel all sorts of uneasy because you're struggling financially. And just the idea of trying to meet someone's expectations financially and you just don't know how to do it and you're a couple days away from it and you're going, I don't know. Some of us at our locations are struggling in our marriages. And just the idea of the next couple of days with family around just makes us feel all sorts of uneasy. Or maybe you're struggling in a relationship, whether it be a family member or a friend that you know you're gonna see this week, and you just don't know how it's gonna go. And you feel like you're just stumbling around in the darkness of that. Or maybe it's an uncertain future. Perhaps you're a college student and you've come home and you're just really uncertain about what your next step is in life, and your parents wanna know what your next step is, and you feel like you're stumbling in the darkness going, I don't know. And in these times of difficulty, it can feel like the weight of the world is upon our shoulders. And church, the darkness can feel overwhelming. Some of us battle deep anxiety and depression, and the idea of being around a group of people this week makes us just want to turn the lights off and go hide. Some of us feel like the joy and the peace that Christmas is supposed to bring makes us feel like we just want to isolate and want nothing to do with the joy and the peace. Some of us grew up in homes where Christ was the centerpiece, and you're kind of struggling with your faith, trying to figure out, was that my parents' faith or is this my faith? No matter where you're at today, in the darkness that you may find yourself in today, I want you to hear me say this. The Christmas story reminds us that God sent his son not because we're perfect, but precisely because we're not. He invites us to find his light, especially when the world feels dark. Jesus came into our world not because the world's perfect, but because it's broken. And he enters into our struggles. He enters into our pain. He enters into our depression. He enters into all of the darkness that we find ourselves in every day. As Isaiah chapter 9:6 reminds us, he's our what? He's our wonderful counselor. He's our mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. These are not titles as much as they are promises that he's with us even in the darkest times. Church, there is a God who hears our prayers. And there is a light that shines brighter than any darkness that you're in right now. He is the light of the world. So let me say this. We can pause right there. There are some people at all of our locations today who've never accepted that light. I want to invite you to do that today. You've never stepped into the light that he brings for you, that in the midst of your darkness, in the midst of your pains, struggles, sin, shame, past, whatever it is that you're carrying, he wants to step into that for you. He wants to carry all of the weight that you're carrying for you. That's why he came to this earth. That is the Christmas story, that he came to live and to die on a cross for you, for your sin, for your shame, for your guilt, for your pain, for your past. That's why he came. So if you've never accepted him before, I want to invite you to do that today. Best way to do that is simply to scan the QR code on the chair in front of you. Just your way of saying, hey, I want to be baptized. I want to start the conversation about how to step into a right relationship with Jesus. For the rest of us, we understand that Christmas isn't just about Jesus coming and living and dying on a cross for us. Well, that's part of it. He also calls us to do something else. He calls us to reflect that light. That he is the light, but he calls us to reflect it. In fact, check out what he says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. This is what Jesus says. Jesus says, me and you, when we've accepted the light, here's what we are to do. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so they may see your good deeds, but here's the biggest part, and glorify your Father in heaven. Church, this is the call of Christmas. The call of Christmas isn't just to receive the light, but to reflect the light. That we're meant to be light in a very dark world. God didn't send Jesus into this world to live 33 years on this earth, sinless, perfect, blameless, die on a cross, to give us some ideas as to how to live our life. No, he sent Jesus as his light to then allow that light to shine through us, through ordinary people like you and like me. That's the purpose of Christmas. This isn't a passive thing. This idea of shining the light of Jesus isn't passive. Jesus didn't say, you're the light of the world, so just sit there and hope people notice. It's not what he said. He said, you're the light of the world, so what? So shine brightly. So how do we do that? How do we shine brightly? Let me give you 3 ways. First one is this, through our love. Through our love. When we love like Jesus, his love will shine through us. What does that mean? A lot of us, we like to love the people who love us, right? We like to love the people who look like us, who act like us. We like to love those people, right? It's easy to love those people. What about other people? Jesus called us to love all people. People who are hard to love. People who are lonely. People who are forgotten. People who don't agree with us. People who hurt us. So when we begin to love like that, we're loving like Jesus, and then his love will shine through us. Secondly, through our kindness. We will shine through our kindness. And I know that sounds pretty cliche, but we live in a world that's not very kind, right? I would say we live in a very divided world. If you go on social media, you'll find just how divided people are real fast. And so what if we were just kind to people? Kindness is like a shining beacon in the darkness. It's small acts of grace that people will notice, and they'll say, there's something different about you. A third way is through our words. Through our words. I don't have to remind you, but I will anyway. Our words hold so much power. The Bible tells us that words will either build up or tear down. How would you have your words? Would you have them build up or tear down? When we do this, we do what Paul says in Philippians chapter 2. 2:15 says this, then you will shine among them like stars in the sky. So let me give you 3 questions today. When you think about how you can shine, let me give you 3 quick questions to ask yourself. And I'd love for you to take these and actually reflect on them. First one is this. What has God given you that you can reflect his light? What has God given you? And we're talking about gifts. The Bible is very clear. The Bible is very clear that all of us have gifts. So what gift has God given you that you might reflect his light in the places that you find yourself in? In January, we're going to roll something out. You're welcome to do it today, but in January, we're actually going to roll it out. It's called the SHAPE Assessment. What that stands for is S, spiritual gifts, H, heart, A, abilities, P, personality, and E, experience. It's called the SHAPE Assessment. You can find it at calvary.ch/serve. You can fill it out today if you want. In January, we're actually going to roll it out, though. You can figure out what your shape is. What is your shape that God is allowing you to reflect his light to people around you? So what has God given you? If you don't know, fill that out. Fill that assessment out. What has God given you that you might reflect his light? Question number 2, where are you going that needs his light? Where are you going that needs his light? Think about the places that you go. Think about the places that you frequent. Maybe it's your workplace. Maybe it's your neighborhood. Maybe it's the coffee shop. Maybe it's the gym. I don't know where it is for you. But think about the places that you go on a regular basis and strive to be a person of integrity, strive to be a person who shines God's light in the places that you go. Question 3, who are you with that needs God's light? Who are you with that needs God's light? Think about the people that you interact with on a daily basis, whether at work, at home, at school, your friends, your family. Who are the people that you spend time with on a regular basis that you could shine God's light to on a regular basis? Who are those people? You knew I was going to do this, didn't you? Christmas is coming. And on your chair, the chair next to you, you got one of these cards. And one card is for you, obviously, so you don't forget when Christmas services are. But one card is for a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, a teacher, a classmate, somebody that you see on a regular basis that you can say, hey, I'd love for you to come sit with me at our Christmas service. And so who is that for you? Who's the person that you have yet to invite that you know, like, gosh, dang it, God's calling me to invite that person? Who is that for you? Here's what I want to do today. I want to just take the next few moments and I just want to pray over this invitation that you have. That you would have boldness to share and have boldness to want to shine to the person around you. So I'm going to pray and we'll dismiss. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for the opportunity we have to think about who in our life we need to shine your light for. Not because it's for us, but because you have shown your grace and your love and your mercy to us, and we want to extend that to others. And so God, I pray for boldness this week as we make an invite about who we're going to invite to Monday or Tuesday's Christmas services. And I pray, Father, that you would soften some hearts that they might hear an invitation and say yes to want to come, to hear about your grace and your mercy and your love. God, allow us this week as we leave this place to shine because you've called us to do that. To be different, to live out what you've called us to live out. God, we love you and we thank you. In your name we pray, amen.